Hello, if you are listening to these words right now, allow me to greet you slowly, gently, wherever you are, in a familiar room, or in the middle of a quiet afternoon filled with thoughts. Set everything down for a moment, take a deep breath, and stay here with me. This is not a judgment, and it is not a distant story. This is a very personal journey meant for Pisces, and perhaps meant for you. There are seasons in life when Pisces begins to feel that they no longer truly belong where they are. The feeling is not loud, not dramatic. It does not arrive as a shock or a clear turning point. It comes quietly, slipping into the smallest moments. Maybe it is the morning you wake up, look around a familiar room, and suddenly feel that something is missing. The space is the same, everything is still in its place, yet inside you, there is more emptiness than usual. Pisces experiences the world through emotional depth. You do not just live in a space, you live in its energy. And when a place no longer fits, your body speaks before your mind does. It may be an unexplained exhaustion, even on a day that was not demanding, a heaviness in your chest when you come home, even though you once loved that place deeply. Long nights, lying still in the dark, listening to yourself, realizing that sleep no longer feels fully restful. You may have told yourself that you are thinking too much, that it is probably just a phase and everything will be fine. Pisces often does this, always trying to adapt, always trying to stay, always placing other people's emotions before their own. You are used to enduring in silence, used to not disturbing anyone, even when inside, your energy is slowly running out. But that sense of not belonging does not disappear. It stays persistent, like a small wave hitting the shore again and again, until you can no longer ignore it. The space around you begins to mirror your inner state. Corners that once felt safe now feel tight. Walls that once protected you start to feel like they are holding you in place. You realize that you are no longer being nourished there. Not because the place is wrong, but because you have changed. You have grown, become deeper, more sensitive to your inner truth. Your soul needs a different kind of space, one where you can breathe more fully, one that does not require you to shrink yourself just to fit. At times, Pisces feels guilty for thinking this way. You wonder if you are ungrateful or too idealistic. But listening to what you feel inside is not a betrayal of anyone. It is an act of honesty. When energy is no longer aligned, staying only causes you to slowly lose yourself. And you, more than anyone, deserve to live in a space that respects your emotions and your sensitivity. The signs that something is no longer right are often very subtle. A conversation that seems normal but leaves you feeling empty. A quiet afternoon filled with sadness for no clear reason. A sense that you are standing on the edge of your own life, watching everything pass by without truly touching it. These moments are not meant to scare you. They arrive to remind you that something is waiting for you to listen. And somewhere, very deep within, Pisces' intuition is still whispering that this uneasiness is not the end. It is a gentle reminder that you are growing, and that what once felt complete may have already fulfilled its purpose. If you allow yourself to listen, the story will begin to unfold on its own, softly, the way water finds its path, carrying light that you may not yet realize is already very close. And then, when that light finally reaches you, everything begins to move faster than you ever expected. There is not much time to prepare, and there are no clear warnings, just a very human, very real moment when you realize you cannot stay still any longer. A decision rises, not from logic, but from something deeper inside, like the tide changing direction. No command, no announcement, it simply knows when it is time to pull back. That move may leave Pisces feeling unsettled. It does not look like what you once imagined, not a perfectly organized plan, not a journey prepared carefully in mind and in resources. It arrives suddenly, perhaps through a short conversation, a seemingly small event, or a clear inner knowing that if you do not leave now, you will lose something more important than familiar safety. You may have asked yourself why this is happening this way. Why now? Why you? But deep inside, there is a calm awareness that this is not meaningless disruption. This is alignment, not meant to take something from you, but to move you out of a space that has held too many unspoken truths for far too long. A place where truth was compressed, both the truth of others and your own. Staying longer would mean continuing to accept uncertainty, half answers, emotions left unfinished. And Pisces, with your sensitive heart, was never meant to live forever inside that kind of ambiguity. This move, even if it appears sudden, is the last open doorway leading you into the light. Not a blinding light, but one that is honest enough to show you where you stand and what has quietly been shaping your life. At first you may feel pushed, as if you are being forced away from something familiar, but with every step forward, a strange lightness begins to appear, as if each step allows you to set down a layer of weight you have carried for far too long. Old questions start to fall away. The worries that once made you hesitate lose their grip. You no longer feel the need to understand everything or explain everything. Truth, when it is no longer hidden, is already clear enough. This move is not only a change of place, it is a shift in energy, a moment where you are released from an old loop, one where you sacrificed your peace just to keep things looking fine. Now, you no longer need to stay to prove anything. You no longer need to endure to keep someone close. You are allowed to choose honesty, even when that choice means beginning again. And within that movement, something important is happening. When you leave, what was once hidden has nowhere left to hide. Truth begins to surface naturally, without force, without confrontation. It appears like sunlight entering a room that has been closed for years, not to hurt, only to reveal what has always been there. Pisces may not yet see the entire road ahead, but every step is bringing you closer to a truer version of yourself. And as you continue walking very gently, you begin to understand that some things can only be seen once you have left the old place behind. That light is still ahead, patient, waiting for you to come just a little closer, so what needs to be seen can slowly reveal itself in the softest way you are ready to receive. And as that light spreads wider, what once lived in the shadows can no longer remain hidden. Not because someone chose to expose it, and not because you went searching for answers. Everything simply reveals itself at the right time, in the right way. Like fog slowly lifting to uncover a road that has been there all along. Pisces can feel this moment clearly, a quiet stillness inside, both surprising and familiar, as if a part of you always knew this was coming. The truth about people begins to take clearer shape. Words that once sounded warm are now seen through a different lens. Actions that once confused you start connecting into a complete picture. There are no longer vague gaps for you to fill with hope or excessive understanding. You no longer have to guess. You no longer wonder if you misunderstood or if you simply felt too much. The truth stands there, silent yet unmistakably clear. Then comes the truth about a relationship. Perhaps one you invested time, emotion, and trust into. Perhaps one you tried to hold together through patience, by adjusting yourself, by staying silent when something felt wrong. But now, the final layer falls away. No more circular explanations. No more reasons to delay facing what is real. You see the relationship exactly as it is, not better, not worse, just honest. What surprises Pisces the most may be the truth about yourself. You realize there were times you accepted less than what you truly deserved. You see that you stayed, not because of pure love, but because of fear of loss, fear of hurting others, fear of breaking an image you worked hard to protect. You recognize that your intuition had been speaking for a long time, and you chose not to listen, hoping things would change if you tried just a little harder. This truth may cause your heart to sink for a brief moment, not with sharp pain, but with a gentle sense of regret. Regret for the times you did not listen to yourself. Regret for moments you convinced yourself everything was fine, while deep inside, you knew it was not. And yet, at the same time, a very real sense of relief appears, as if you are finally allowed to stop pretending. There is nothing left to shield now, and no reason left to delay. Truth, once acknowledged, is no longer threatening. It does not arrive to punish you, but to free you. It removes the questions that looped endlessly in your mind. It ends the cycle of self-doubt, self-blame, and justifying what was never healthy. You no longer need to force understanding. Everything is already clear. Pisces begins to feel a very different kind of quiet. Not the quiet of avoidance, but the quiet of knowing. When truth stands firm, you are no longer pulled between hope and disappointment. You stand more upright within yourself. You breathe more deeply. And in that moment, you understand that seeing the truth, even late, is still better than living forever inside an incomplete story. The light remains, unhurried, unforced, just enough to show you each step you are taking. And as you stay with this truth a little longer, you begin to sense that this clarity is preparing you for something else. A very gentle, very real sense of freedom is slowly forming. It does not arrive with noise. It opens quietly, through a deep peace, like water finally settling after a long wave has passed. And when everything has finally been seen this clearly, the first emotion is not relief. There is a very real moment when your heart sinks, not because the truth is too cruel, but because it touches the very things you have been protecting for so long. You may feel pain or disappointment or simply exhaustion, as if you have just set down a suitcase you carried for years, only now realizing how heavy it truly was. Pisces allows themselves to pause there for a moment. No judgment, no rush to heal, just quiet awareness. Truth does not demand that you be strong right away. It does not ask you to understand everything at once. It simply stands there, calm, like a clear mirror. And as you look into it, you begin to notice that this pain feels different from the pain you knew before. It is not sharp, not chaotic. It carries the shape of awakening, a different sensation, where you no longer resist what is happening, but simply breathe with it, allowing it to pass through. Very slowly, Pisces begins to sense that something is changing. The illusions that once gave you hope, that kept you staying, that made you believe things would be different if you just tried a little harder, begin to dissolve on their own. No arguments, no explanations. They fade like morning mist when the sun rises, leaving behind a clear, open space. And within that space, you no longer have to brace yourself. You stop asking why things did not turn out the way you wished. You start to understand that some things do not need to be fixed, only seen for what they truly are. The invisible bindings you once carried also begin to reveal themselves. Responsibilities you placed on yourself, roles you grew so used to that you forgot you were allowed to choose differently. The fear of disappointing others, the habit of placing other people's needs above your own peace. Before, these bindings felt like who you were, hard to separate. But now, as truth is named, you see clearly they are not you. They are simply things you once carried, and now you are allowed to set them down. There is a very quiet moment where Pisces feels lighter, even if joy has not arrived yet. This is the feeling of freedom beginning, not loud, not dramatic, just a deeper breath, a morning where your chest no longer feels heavy. An evening of stillness where your mind no longer spins with old questions. You begin to move more slowly, not from exhaustion, but because you no longer need to chase anything. Truth, once accepted, becomes a gentle companion. It does not remind you of your mistakes. It does not blame you for staying too long or believing too deeply. It simply helps you see that every past choice came from a desire to love and to preserve. And now, as you have grown enough to see more clearly, you are worthy of choosing a softer way to live. Pisces begins to understand that liberation does not mean rejecting the past. Liberation means keeping what shaped you and releasing what no longer fits who you are becoming. There is no need to cut ties, no need for resentment, only honesty. Honest with your feelings, honest with your limits, honest with what makes you feel alive. And in that honesty, a new inner space begins to open. Wider, brighter. Not because life is perfect, but because you are no longer binding yourself to old stories. You begin to feel a different kind of peace. Not the peace of everything being okay, but the peace of no longer pretending that you are. The light is no longer far away now. It lives in the way you walk more slowly, in the way you listen to yourself more clearly, in the way you allow yourself to rest without guilt. And as you remain with this lightness a little longer, you begin to notice that not only are you changing inside, the space around you is responding as well. As if, when you are finally ready to live more truthfully, the world quietly prepares a new place for you. A place where you do not need to shrink yourself. A place where you can breathe deeply and feel welcomed exactly as you are. And then, when you step into that new space, the first thing you notice is not how it looks, but how your body feels. Your breath goes a little deeper. Your shoulders soften. Your heartbeat slows down in the most natural way. No one tells you this place is meant for you, yet every cell in your body knows. as if, at last, you are standing somewhere where you no longer have to brace yourself just to exist. This new space does not have to be perfect. It may be smaller, quieter, or completely different from what you once imagined, but it carries an energy that feels honest and clean. Here, you no longer feel watched or judged or asked to explain why you are the way you are. You are allowed to be yourself, with all of your sensitivity, your depth, and even the silences you once believed were weakness. Pisces begins to understand that a place is more than four walls. It is the sense of safety when you open the door and step inside. It is the ease you feel when you set your bag down, sit quietly for a moment, and no longer hear that invisible pressure rushing through your mind. This new space reflects who you are becoming, not who you once tried to be just to fit someone else or something else. Here, you allow yourself to breathe more deeply, not the kind of breath taken just to calm down, but the natural breath of someone no longer holding tension inside. With every inhale, you feel your body arriving fully in the present. With every exhale, you release a little more of what no longer needs to be carried. Healing begins this way, through the smallest moments, simple, human, real. You start to notice that you sleep more deeply. Your dreams grow lighter. When you wake in the morning, you no longer feel the need to prepare yourself for a long, heavy day. Instead, there is a gentle curiosity. What will I feel today? What will I learn about myself? This new energy does not push you to do more. It invites you to live more truthfully. Within this space, Pisces finally has time to listen again to their real needs. Not the desires shaped by other people's expectations, but the ones that live deep inside. The need for quiet, for creativity without comparison, for connection built on sincerity, not the fear of being left behind. These needs were once overshadowed. Now they are allowed to speak. Inner renewal does not happen in a day. It unfolds in ordinary moments. When you make a cup of tea and watch the light shift across the room, when you clean a small corner and realize you are also clearing something inside, when you choose to say no to what drains you and yes to what nourishes you, no matter how small it seems. This new space teaches you an important truth. Peace does not come from everything being fine. It comes from no longer betraying yourself. Here, you do not have to prove your worth through sacrifice or endurance. Your value is already visible in the way you treat yourself with kindness and extend that same kindness into the world. Pisces begins to feel a new kind of trust in intuition. Trust that if a place makes you shrink, leaving is not failure. And if a place allows you to open, it is because you are ready for something better. This new energy is not loud, but it is steady. It does not promise a life without difficulty, but it assures you that you will no longer face it alone. And as you continue to live within this space, very naturally, you begin to notice that old cycles are closing. Not through cold finality, but through understanding and acceptance. Like looking back on a long road you once walked, without blame, only gratitude. Because without those experiences, you would not recognize the softness you now hold. And within that softness, a clear feeling arises. You are ready to leave behind what no longer walks with the person you are today. And when you have settled into that space long enough, a deep stillness begins to arrive. Not the stillness of exhaustion, but the quiet that follows a long journey. Pisces looks back on the road already traveled, not to blame, not to judge what was right or wrong, just to see it, with a new understanding that is gently formed. There were patterns that repeated in your life, familiar emotions, familiar roles, familiar stories. So familiar that you once believed this was simply how life worked. But standing here now, you begin to see their shape more clearly. There were years when you chose silence, not because you had nothing to say, but because you believed patience would keep the peace. You learned how to endure so well that sometimes you forgot you had limits too. You accepted what was unfair, not because you felt undeserving, but because you hoped your compassion would change things. You lived for others again and again, placing their needs first, their comfort above your own peace, and you called it love. But there is something Pisces now understands. Clearly, calmly, love is never meant to be built on making yourself smaller. Sacrifice, without respect, slowly becomes a burden. Those old cycles, even the ones that felt familiar, have completed their purpose. They taught you compassion. They taught you empathy. They taught you how deeply you can love, but they were never meant to last forever. There is a very quiet moment when you realize you no longer want to repeat those lessons. Not because you have grown weaker, but because you are strong enough now to stop proving your worth through endurance. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself endlessly. You no longer feel guilty for choosing what brings you peace. Old reflexes, old habits, old roles begin to fall away. Not dramatically, not loudly. They simply stop holding on. That karmic cycle closes not with a slammed door, but with a gentle touch, like resting your hand on a doorknob, pausing for a moment to thank what has passed, and then letting go. No resentment, no regret. Only the quiet acceptance that you have gone far enough on that path. Staying longer would offer nothing new, only a repetition of feelings you already understand too well. Pisces feels a different kind of release. Not explosive joy, but a lightness, layer by layer, as if you no longer need to carry stories that were never truly yours. You no longer feel responsible for healing everyone. You understand that each soul has its own path, and your work is not to stay behind and save others, but to live in alignment with your own light. When you do that, you give more to the world than you ever realized. A quiet, beautiful maturity is unfolding inside you. You begin to choose carefully what you allow into your life. You know how to say no without becoming hard. You know how to leave without destroying. You know how to release without erasing the past. These choices do not make you cold. They make your compassion healthier, deeper, because it no longer demands self-abandonment. And when the old door closes this way, you are not left standing in emptiness. You stand in a new clarity, a sense that you are ready for a different rhythm of living, a life where you no longer trade exhaustion for acceptance, where you are allowed to be yourself without permission, without explanation. The light is no longer just a promise ahead. It is close now, present in the way you walk more slowly, in the way you treat yourself more gently. In the quiet trust that what is waiting for you no longer carries the shape of the past, but the breath of a true beginning, a beginning where you live honestly, fully, and lightly, in the way you have always deserved. And then, very naturally, Pisces realizes they are standing at a very different point. Not because everything around you has completely changed, but because the way you show up in your own life is no longer the same. A gentle honesty begins to grow inside you. You no longer need to avoid your true feelings, and you no longer try to soften reality just to make it easier to accept. You allow yourself to see life with clearer eyes, even when that means seeing what is imperfect. Living more truthfully does not make you cold or hardened. In fact, Pisces becomes softer, but with boundaries. You stop convincing yourself that silence is always peace, that endurance is always love, that staying is always the right choice. You understand that truth, even when it first stirs your heart, eventually brings a deep, steady feeling. The feeling of standing in the right place in your own life. The freedom you step into is not loud. It does not need to be proven or displayed. It is a quiet, personal freedom, where old questions no longer pull you back and forth. You stop asking if you are good enough, if you did the right thing, if you disappointed someone. You begin to measure life with a different scale, lighter, more honest. Does this bring me peace? Am I respecting my own feelings? In this phase, Pisces begins to feel fully present in each moment. You are there when you speak, when you listen, when you are alone. You no longer rush to fill empty space with unnecessary worries. You allow quiet to become a companion, not something to fear. And within that quiet, you hear your inner voice more clearly, no longer mixed with the noise of expectations or fear. Some relationships naturally fall away, and new connections begin to appear. You do not cling, and you do not push away. You let things come and go in their own rhythm. You understand that not everyone can walk with you this far. And that does not make anyone wrong. It is simply the truth of different journeys. When you no longer live in illusion, you no longer need to hold on to what no longer aligns. The peace Pisces finds does not come from life becoming perfect. It comes from no longer resisting what is. You allow yourself to feel fully, whether it is joy, sadness, or a passing uncertainty. You do not rush to label it. You do not rush to fix it. You trust that you are strong enough to move through every state because you are no longer alone with yourself. A new trust is forming, deep and steady. Trust that when you live truthfully, you are guided to truthful places. Trust that when you stop betraying yourself, life begins to respond with experiences that fit you better. Trust that light is not always bright, but it is always present when you stop turning away from the truth. And as you sit with this feeling a little longer, you realize that everything that has happened was not meant to exhaust you or wound you. It happened to bring you closer to yourself. The move, the truths revealed, the cycles closing, all of it was necessary so you could stand here now, lighter, clearer, and more free. Pisces does not need to rush forward. You have arrived at a place where you can breathe deeply and stay. A place where you do not need to hide, do not need to brace yourself, do not need to prove anything, only to be present with all your sincerity and natural sensitivity. And in that presence, something beautiful is happening. You are living not inside an old story, but inside your own truth. Peace is no longer something you search for outside yourself. It is here now, very close, very real, quietly walking beside you, like a gentle stream that keeps flowing, carrying just enough light to illuminate the path ahead, in the softest way you have ever known.